In today's Farm Report, the Senate Ag Committee voted to advance the mandatory price reporting along with other programs at their business meeting last week. Spencer Chase with AgriPulse has more.
On Thursday, the Senate Agriculture Committee advanced legislation to reauthorize 3 federal programs already addressed by the House of Representatives. The bill combined 3 pieces of House legislation that authorize mandatory price reporting, the National Forest Foundation, and the U.S. Grain Standards Act. In his opening statement Thursday morning, committee chair and Kansas Republican Pat Roberts said he hopes to reauthorize all 3 programs by September 30th. That would be the same day current authorization expires for mandatory price reporting, which collects information from meat packers to gauge prices across the country. Roberts also explained why the information is so important to the nation's livestock producers.
This information is critical for farmers and ranchers who raise livestock and entities in the meat trade because it provides them a landscape of the marketplace for livestock and meat and provides information for them to make informed business decisions.
Mandatory price reporting technically covers 3 species, cattle, sheep, and hogs. But National Pork Producers Council CEO Neil Dirks told reporters Thursday afternoon that the information is especially critical to the pork industry.
But our industry's just accepted it, and it's become a basis. I mean, it's a classic story, I think, of the success of something the government can do that is a good thing that helps business.
NPPC is pushing to make the reporting an essential service, meaning it would still continue in the event of a government shutdown. That provision was in the House bill, but not in the legislation advanced in the Senate. Even if it isn't legislatively listed as essential, an administration could still decide to keep providing the service in the event of a shutdown. Dirks said that was the case until the most recent event in 2013.
There had been times before, under mandatory price reporting, since it was created in 1999, that the government had shut down, and the government, USDA, had deemed it as an essential service. That's what created the problem, was the 2013 was when the decision was made, no, this is an essential service.
Since the Senate bill includes changes not included in House-passed legislation, both chambers will have to pass the bill before the end of the month. The bill was drafted in conjunction with House agriculture leadership. Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Spencer Chase.
Despite the prospects for continued declines in milk prices, U.S. dairy operators seem to be on a path to continued increases in production. Last year, production was about 206 billion pounds. This year could likely be just a tad under 209 billion. USDA Outlook Chairman Seth Meyer says that's about 100 million pounds more than had been forecast last month.
Because it appears that there's a lower cow slaughter and a little bit more demand for replacements going on. So the producers appear to be holding on to animals and gathering a little bit more animals, and it's boosting production a little bit, we think, in 2015.
And that could carry into 2016 with another 4 billion pounds of production at 213 billion. As to prices, the all-milk price last year averaging just under $24 a hundredweight. This year it's about $8 less than that at $16.90. And for 2016,
we see a year-over-year decline from $16.90 down to $16.60 in 2016.
With about a 2% drop in the expected 2016 all-milk price, with about a 2% hike in production. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
The World Trade Organization heard cool tariff arguments from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. The U.S. is asking for damages of around $90 million be impacted due to the U.S.'s cool rule, while Canada and Mexico are asking for around a combined $2.3 billion in sanctions. Spencer Chase with AgriPulse has more.
This week in Geneva, the World Trade Organization is hearing from Canada, Mexico, and the United States on authorization of retaliatory tariffs stemming from the country of origin labeling dispute. The WTO has ruled several times that the U.S. mandatory cool rule is non-compliant with international trade obligations, and now an arbitration panel will set authorized levels of retaliation. Canada and Mexico are seeking combined retaliation of just over $3 billion, and the U.S. is countering with suggested penalties closer to $90 million. Wednesday in Washington, National Farmers Union Senior Vice President of Programs Chandler Gould urged support of a bill introduced by Senators John Hoeven and Debbie Stabenow that would create a voluntary cool program.
Let's say that the arbitration number comes back from the WTO and is extremely low, which I don't think is going to be the case. If that comes back, most likely we're not going to do anything, and we'll maintain mandatory country of origin labeling as it currently is. And this is me reading tea leaves. I'm thinking that WTO is going to come back somewhere between $300 and $500 million of damage. Then what the problem is going to be is We have got to garner enough support for the Hoeven-Stabenow bill to get that passed through the Senate to demonstrate to Canada and Mexico that full repeal is not an option and force the House of Representatives to accept that alternative language so that we, NFU and the Senate, can define what that A label is going to look like.
Gould said if the WTO sides with Canada, Cool faces likely repeal in what he called a knee-jerk reaction. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association is opposed to Cool, and in July, shortly before the introduction of Hoeven and Stabenow's bill, NCBA Vice President of Government Affairs Colin Woodall said Canada and Mexico have made it clear they won't accept anything short of full repeal.
There are still groups that continue to think that there's a way to negotiate a fix to country of origin labeling. We have looked at this from every different angle. There is only one way to prevent retaliation, and that is full repeal of Cool. There have been some talks about putting a voluntary system in place, but doing so through legislation, the Canadians and the Mexicans have said that that does not work. So ultimately, we have to ask, what will the Canadians and the Mexicans and WTO accept? And they've made it very clear they will only accept full repeal of Cool, period.
In June, Canadian Agriculture Minister Jerry Ritt said he isn't opposed to a discussion of a voluntary program so long as it comes after full repeal.
And I'll tell you, we're taking a hard line. They can massage, they can talk voluntary, they can do whatever they like after they repeal the Cool initiative.
The WTO is expected to rule on the authorized level of retaliation by late November. Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Spencer Chase.
In a 6-year span, the value of organic agricultural production in the U.S. rose 72%. That is one of the many findings released by USDA Thursday as part of its Census of Agriculture series, this time looking at organic ag as of 2014.
There are 14,093 farms. That's a decrease of 2% from the 2012 census and a 3% decrease from 2008.
And total land in organic production was down from 2008 as well, according to Troy Joshua of the National Agricultural Statistics Service, making the total sales of $5.5 billion in organic ag products last year stand out more. The top organic commodity sold, milk, and the state with the most organic ag production per the survey, California. 80% of all organic producers sell their products within 500 miles of their farm. And when survey participants were asked what they plan to do in the next 5 years,
39% of them stated that they expect to increase production.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
During harvest season, drivers need to be especially cautious on rural roads. Hello everyone, I'm Cindy Young with Brownfield with this National Farm Safety and Health Week message. While only a fifth of the U.S. population lives in rural areas, 3 out of 5 fatal traffic crashes happen there. That is a startling statistic that we can change by making some simple adjustments. The National Education Center for Agricultural Safety advises patience with farmers moving equipment between fields. Only pass in designated zones and be sure there is no oncoming traffic before pulling into the left lane. Be cautious when approaching blind intersections caused by mature crops. Avoid using a mobile phone to call or text while driving. Farmers, use your lights and flashers and make sure your slow-moving vehicle emblem is easy to see. And everyone on those rural roads, just slow down. I'm Cindy Young with Brownfield.